out in the back?
I don't know where he's at. He was, I talked to him this morning.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. Is it published somewhere?
Yeah.
If people can see it, they want to read it. It's a waste of my 10 minutes.
My personal opinion, hit a highlight.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's right.
I even think on all the others, like towns and stuff, it's so many more names. Just get a highlight of each one.
Spend time on the big issues.
Right.
I'll start the meeting.
Yeah, especially the ARPA one.
That's the worst.
I'd rather listen to.
Can't even read it when it's up.
Yeah,
Hi, Betty.
sometimes we don't hear the word kilowatt, kilowatt hours.
The Vin's are flushing a bird. Oh, yeah.
Anything there.
It's not today, is it?
There you go.
You're gonna have to drink it.
Here, Joe, you can.
Thank you.
What you saw on was, but it was.
Got too many. Well, see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, board members, and Joe. Call the regular meeting of the Utility Board of La Junta to order. Madam Secretary.
Ayala,
Here.
Bird,
Here.
Bourget,
Here.
Cranston,
Here.
Velasquez.
Here. And I'd like everyone to speak into the mic once and see what the volume sounds like out there. If anyone needs to talk louder, would you raise your hand? Mr.
I think we're okay.
I've been told by people we can't be heard, so I thought we would check that, so.
There you go.
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
Hello?
Try it again. This direction.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You now.
Patrick?
Test, test, test.
Can you hear me?
Yours is off.
Actually, Paul, you're the hardest to hear.
Oh, maybe I'll turn on my mic. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
And how's that? Oh,
Great.
super loud.
Thank you. All right, we have a time for citizen participation for non-agenda items. Are there any citizens who wish to have a 5-minute say? Hearing none, we'll go to the reports. Oh, wait, minutes of the previous meeting, sorry. You all have had a chance to read the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any corrections or additions? I guess everything's in correction.
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Meeting carries.
Before you start the reports, I just wanted to hand this out, and it is the fixed cost that I was asked by Paul. It's difficult to come up with fixed costs because unlike normal businesses, we don't have building rent, we don't have that. So what I pulled out as fixed costs are things that by law we have to pay, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to reports, and it's been suggested and the board has concurred that we take a lot of time reading lengthy reports with a lot of details about how many potholes there were and minor things. So we're going to amend our custom here by having the person giving a report allude to any significant items that are of interest, that that's kind of a judgment call, and address major items of interest that would be in the report, and otherwise everything is published online anyway, so we'll just let that be our record of departmental goings on. And I'll start with the ARPA report. By not reading it, but telling you the highlights. ARPA's doing well. ARPA does a really good job of budgeting and controlling costs. The only major thing is something that they pay attention to. ARPA has $106 of cash on hand at this time. That's something we need to start paying attention to, I think.
106 days.
Days.
You said dollars.
Pardon me.
There's a little bit of a
That's a
difference there.
big difference there, yes. And our debt service coverage, which we're mandated, is 1.33 times. Energy sales are a little bit down, and costs are steady. ARPA is, just for people to understand, sponsoring City Light and Power Engineering is helping all the municipals with some serious distribution studies and planning, and that's a really good benefit from ARPA. The next ARPA meeting will be in La Junta at the college at 10 a.m. on the 30th of May. Any questions or?
Is that the Rizzuto room?
It's no, it's in the little room in the hallway just to the east of the Rizzuto room.
Okay.
It's across from the bathrooms in the main floor there. The door, it's kind of a little inset door, but you can see it there. All right. Questions or comments? All right, let's move to water and wastewater. Mr. Siva?
Yeah, thank you.
Here, you cut me down on what I can talk about, and it's the one meeting that I made a 2-page report on too, so that's not fair.
We
Told you,
can,
Mike, earlier, I need to have a script to go on.
we can't stop you, you know.
No, it's fair. Yeah, it's fair. Being in brief then, RO plant, basically it's business as usual. Distribution crew, one of our big things is we're quoting out materials to install water service down to the new brick and tile park. This will be for irrigation purposes, where 1/2 of the open lot down there will be, your green grass, like your bluegrass fescues, whatever, so that they can have Little League baseball, whatever, can play down there. Then the opposite side is where we're going to show xeriscaping ideas using native grasses and the rest. So through that, we hope to show also for the community with our conservation efforts the different amounts of water, how significant the difference is between maintaining your thick, lush lawns and using more xeriscape, native appearing plants, grasses, etc. The cost of that will be covered from remaining funds in the grants that help to build that park. So our time commitment to install it is kind of our match for that. Under wastewater, the big one was we met with Direct Discharge Consulting. We've been having some interesting flows coming in through our collection system, and we've kind of, can't prove it, but we believe that there's a few institutions that are kind of discharging stuff that they should not be. But there's some companies that either work in town or pass through have been utilizing the dark of night or other areas where we can't see to discharge materials in their trucks into our sewer system. So we're going to begin setting up some flow monitoring devices that will be coupled with kind of like game cameras and the rest. So if we start to find places where we're monitoring where people are discharging stuff they should not be, we do have every intent to pursue them to the full action that Mrs. Harris is willing to go to ensure we keep these things out. The reason we know we're being hit with these particular things is there will be at least one day, if not several during a week, when on the outer ring of our orbital basin, you can watch the dissolved oxygen levels just tank. So something that is very septic or anaerobic is coming in a pretty decent quantity, and it's happened, in different hours of the day. So wherever it's occurring from, it's not, like a straight process, but it's something either close to a process or someone just discharging septic trucks, whatever the case might be. So we're going to be on the lookout for them, not only for all the waste that goes to the treatment plant, so that's here in town, which is more concerning for us, but there's also some that hits our lagoons out at the industrial park, but those are non-discharging lagoons, so at least it's not damaging process.
These are all bio wastes, if you'd call them that, not
Correct.
oil and stuff like that.
Some of the oil and stuff might be showing up out at the industrial park, but the rest would be like thick septage or grease trap debris or something else. You can go into the illegal manufacturing as well that could be processed waste that's being discharged into our system. We're also partners with the Colorado Wastewater Surveillance Program, and mostly what they look for is, your influenzas, your RSV. A lot of it came into style when COVID was huge, because you can monitor before a wave of disease might strike because it's already in your body cooking and it's leaving in your body's waste. But you can increase those programs also to start to try, find, and study what other things might be in there. There's some case studies I followed in Europe and a few other communities here in the United States where they can follow it right up, to a person's house. There was one up north where they followed meth processing right up to the trailer park where it was occurring at. Law enforcement set up surveillance. Within just a few days, they popped a really really big operations. So it's kind of high tech, it's kind of fun to watch. The science is really interesting behind it, but we just want to keep out of our plant what shouldn't be there. Another part that's been really intensive up until it was submitted yesterday was we've been working on our discharge permit for the wastewater plant. Through this one, we hope to set back a lot of the testing we've been asked to do over the last 5 years that has gotten exceptionally expensive. So hopefully we can dial that back some. On the notables, where there's some larger things going on, just to reiterate, we received that technical assistance grant for emerging contaminants. That's currently in front of the State Finance Committee. Once they approve our suggested budget, then those monies will be awarded and we can begin work on that grant. We're utilizing the management plan submitted by Valley Resource and Water Management out on the revegetation project with our Holbrook Farms. We're beginning to plant a cover crop for a lot of the empty space this year, which is, if it grows and it does well, then that can be a minor profit with it. But it also begins to give a ground cover, which is supposed to help our grass that we plant emerge better. We're commenting with the CDPHE as they're recommending new restrictions and the regulations for PFAS. We've been selected to participate in small community as the small community representative of the feasibility and implementation group for the Water Quality Control Commission. That's a lot of words and it's a big mouthful, but basically it's us being able to assist with our knowledge and on how water quality affects discharge permits, water treatment, and how we feel about proposed regulations, if they're being too restrictive, not restrictive enough, etc. And we're also researching the purchase of the Catlin Canal rights by the City of Aurora. We've listened to several different presentations Aurora has given on how they plan to manage that. There's a lot through the process that a lot of organizations don't agree with on how Aurora is conducting business and coming down to an already over-allocated water basin to try to meet their future water needs. So I presented to Ms. Harris a possible resolution that we can consider passing. I'm not sure if we'll be ready this meeting or maybe the next. And in support of the Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District, since we don't have an intergovernmental agency agreement with Aurora, it's all mostly their dealings, we really don't have too much dog in the fight, and we're just kind of along for the ride. However, I feel we should support a lot of our ag partners, the canals, and also the fellow communities that could possibly incur harm from this continued practice in the future. So it kind of seems like the time is now to where we really need to begin taking a stand on the continuation of water rights transferred out of our valley.
Mr. Stevens, just to reply to that, it will be ready for this Monday, and if you'd like to join us at the council meeting to lend any of your knowledge, that would be incredibly helpful.
I will be there.
Thanks.
And in short, even though that's still kind of long, Mr. Cranston, that's my report.
All right. I do have a question. Could the citizens help us if they see something like, what would they see if this was happening? Stock tank?
Sure.
Backed up to a manhole or
Stock
something?
tank,
Tell
septic
people what
tank.
to look for, and if they see it, they can give a call.
Sure.
Could you tell us what to look for?
There was one today that came down to us where the people didn't know what to do, but they watched a septic hauler up, they were up by Manzanola, so it's not our concern, but it's the county health department, where they were just discharging their load in the middle of the field. Of course, that goes against virtually every regulation when it comes to the proper disposal of septic waste. So the county health department now is handling that issue. If they wind up losing their hauler's license, if they're permitted by us, they'll wind up losing our permit as well. But it comes down to that, if anybody does see, no one should be discharging anything through a manhole. Generally, nobody should be discharging anything through a clean out at their house. Of course, the more open you wish to make it and stuff, people listen, they'll hear it, so they can adjust how it is they might try to do practice. But once we begin to find specific times of day and follow that course up to specific areas, then it will help a lot, hopefully, to either discontinue the practice or find who's responsible.
But what they would see would be a tank truck with a hose
It
at
could
the
be,
back
could be
probably.
a tank truck, could be even a 5-gallon jug if they're putting it right into a manhole, depending on the potency of whatever it is. It can go a long way to disrupting treatment process.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
On the brick and tile park, so that gets metered.
Yes, sir.
And so it's metered?
Yes.
Does the Parks Department pay that water bill?
Yes. Okay.
Very good, thank you.
You can see I had a question brewing.
Yeah.
A couple of meetings ago, we had the allegation that was disproven about septic waste being discharged at the Walmart parking lot into that canal there. Hopefully that's not happening. So would that account for some of this if that's going on?
That wouldn't, it would have to be discharged directly into our sewer system, because that wouldn't leach into our pipes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So that's a cleanup basically, not in a manhole, like I said. The manhole would go into the runoff.
Well, a person's home clean out, that's right after, right outside, so
Right.
that'll go straight to the to the sewer main. Manholes generally, because you're talking about someone with a 3 to 4 inch hose, on some of your larger septic hauling vehicles. But it can be huge amounts, it can be smaller amounts, it could be someone that just has collected a 55-gallon drum of cooking waste, and now they don't want to call a recycler. It's just so much easier that at closing time we go over, pop the manhole in the alley, dump it in, close it, and away we go.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yes, sir?
Mr. Jackson / Chris Arguello. I don't know which or who is coming.
For those that you don't know, Chris is the electrical department superintendent. He takes care of all the operations. And over the next year, he's going to be learning the finer points of the administration of the electric department, so he will be the director when he feels he's ready. And the city manager says that that's time.
Thanks for having me. I'm just going to go over a few things, try to keep it quick. Some of the jobs that took place in April, there was a quick outage on the LP 52-4 where we rode the line. We couldn't find any issues, so we wrapped it up to a little bird. Usually when the lights go off and on and nobody calls with no power, it's usually a bird. Maybe fouling the property, something, but we didn't find anything. We had an underground fault on Jackson Avenue and Circle Drive caused by a bad primary elbow on the A phase. That one was a little bit more extreme. It was at night, about 10:30. It was underground, so you got to open every vault, every transformer. We finally found the problem. It was the elbow caused by aging. We took all the single phase transformers and put them on the good phases to get power back for the night, and then we had to go back in the morning and terminate that elbow. And like I said, that one had been in for maybe 28 to 30 years, and that's usually the life of an underground installation. We had a primary pole that was changed out on 10th Street, 10th and Barnes Avenue actually, and that was caused by wind, which we've been having a lot lately, and you can't control that, so the wind kind of checks our poles for us. There was a crew that helped the transformers that were moved at the warehouse, so we noticed that the transformers were leaning from bad and old pallets. So when a transformer leans like that, the oil starts seeping through the bushings, and it's not good, so we took care of that problem. The crew cut down a tree that was in the power lines near Johnson Avenue, so when we were riding the line, they noticed that it was being burning up on the top. So we took care of that problem right away. All the substations were sprayed with weeds. Subtechs usually take care of that pretty good, keep the substations nice and clean. System updates. We're all constantly doing training. That's all we do. Even when we're working, it's training. Young crew. So it's just reminding each other. We got a new apprentice in April, so it's training again. So it's good for everybody. We got a new guy, so it reminds us when we train him on things. It's just repetitious, it's safety. So, like I said, I brought up the wind. That's messing with our poles and some of the aging. That just something that's happening that we're running across. Bill will talk about the solar accounts and the ARPA scholarship.
Over the last month, we had 23,627 kilowatt hours returned to the system from 35 customers. Total rebated to the accounts at the avoided cost was $1,300. There are 35 residential and 2 commercial active customers. There's about 3 more on the list to get activated. The 2024 Lahana Electric Department / ARPA scholarship recipient for Lahana was Callie Armandaris. Mr. Cranston came and signed the certificate and read the application. She is well deserving of the honor. You know, we talk about the engineers that we have come down. We pay Atwell. So we have been working on the airbase sub breaker replacement. That's the AB 52S1 breaker. So we're still coordinating that testing of the AB sub equipment, and we've been revising our maintenance testing specifications, and we've done and processed the feeder load data for the SCADA system, and that was also sent to Chris for a solar green generation study. I talked with ARPA this morning. They're working on the PPA with the solar provider that's going to construct the 5 megawatts here. Should have that for the ARPA meeting at the end of the month. Questions?
During a wind event, what's the minimum safe wind speed that you can sustain without putting your crew in danger?
We like to say 35 mile an hour gusts. We won't go up.
Okay, the only reason I bring that up is so that the citizens are aware of that.
Yeah,
They don't
so
expect.
anything 35 and up, we don't like to send it.
So when we're having those windy nights or windy days, that the power goes out, they have to understand it. You're not gonna send a crew up there.
So now we're starting to see trees and stuff actually from 50 feet away fly into the line. So if I have a crew up there working on a transformer, there's a dead tree in the backyard, I mean, that's a hazard too, so 35 and up, so. Yeah, and if it's raining, wait a minute. Yeah. But we're there on standby, and that's what we do, is we try to get to the problem as fast as we can, so.
You do good work.
Thanks.
But you said you can't control the wind?
Work on that, please.
Bill didn't do a good job of controlling the wind either, so it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, Bill, I have a question, please, on the
Yes, sir.
expense report.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get the finance.
Okay.
Ask away.
Again, statement of revenue and expenses, the totals, when we compare our totals from current month to prior month,
Yes? I don't know if I'm looking at the same report you are. This one? No. I guess we got it black and white. Month to date, revenue, month to date, year to date, expenses, month to date,
Yeah.
year to date.
month to date
Total
versus
prior
last month to date. Just the comparison, our revenue went up by $80,000. If you look at our expenses, went down by 300.
It's all the sale of electricity. We didn't sell that much electricity when it was cool. Usually now people are starting to run their air conditioners, and that'll go right back up. We've had, actually we've done pretty good as far as keeping our fund in the black. We did have when we bought the truck, that makes the expenses go up disproportionately to the normal.
was April. We did the,
Was the truck all one expense?
yes,
Yep.
Okay.
$263,000.
It's not showing up in the expense account. And our expenses went down in current month versus the prior month, but our revenue went up.
that's how I expect to be in the month.
That was expense in April, okay. So that would have been the difference in the, okay.
Yep,
All right, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah,
we got it.
yeah.
It was in April.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Thanks, Bill.
Yes, sir.
I guess I should ask, does anyone have questions on the financials for water, since we skipped over that?
Keeping it short, sir.
You did good. Keep your head down. All right, thank you. Mr. Martin, there he is. Martin Montoya, please.
So we'll go back to water.
Right, hello everybody. Does that mean, I don't have to give my financials now?
No,
Just
that was an oversight.
If I don't give my financials, this
Just
isn't gonna be
try it.
very long, so we'll go through the financials. Looking at the customer information up top on the information page. Customers are pretty much close to being the same. I'm just gonna say the industrial municipal numbers. I'm not sure why they're so different. I know, well actually I do know, in the previous year in 2023 they were incorrect completely. So I went through, my crew and I went through and looked at these numbers, and what you see now in 2024 is correct. So when you're looking at industrial and municipal numbers, 2024 numbers are correct. The ones in the past were off for, I don't know how they tallied those before, but it was incorrect. Looking underneath that, you got your landfill and your tonnages. You can see a pretty decent increase in our landfill tonnage, but looks like decreases in recycling across the board. You can look at your tonnage breakdown on the right-hand side there. That was.
Hold on a minute.
This is
So
your
part of it's
customer
in,
information.
part of it's in the packet, part of it's in a separate sheet. What you're talking about is in the staple packet with the customer information in landfill. No, what he's talking about is in the staple, the other packet, yeah. Next to the last page, actually. I got it right.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, can you just go back real quick? You said the information was wrong.
If you look at underneath customer information, under industrial and municipal there on the left-hand side, you can see a kind of a decent change where it says in 2024 you have 10 industrial accounts, but 18 in 23, and then 29 municipal accounts where it says only 3 in 2023. Obviously, that's not the case. There's going to be a fairly decent amount of municipal accounts that are paying for trash, and I don't know where the 2023 numbers came from, but we went through, we counted every single municipal account and industrial account to make sure they were correct in the 2024 numbers. So the 2023 numbers are still there for just the difference between what we had last year and this year, but the 2024 numbers are correct. So just wanted and it's been that way for the last couple of months. I just never pointed it out. Just in case anybody sees that and says, what's going on, that's what's going on. Back to the landfill, you can see again the tonnages, and then the breakdown on the right-hand side for the tonnage that goes up to the landfill. We originally started doing that, just so you know, because you guys wanted to see what the breakdown was between residential and commercial accounts, how much tonnage we were picking up for commercial accounts versus residential accounts. I think originally we kind of wanted to see how we wanted to put our increases or our rate increases, whether it should have been more on commercial than residential or vice versa. So that kind of gives you an idea of our tonnages coming from those perspectives. Customers. Going now below that are other income. Again, the major ones to look at are your 40 and 20-yard boxes. You can see a pretty, if you look at 2024's year-to-date, those are the big numbers. You can see that we have still quite a big increase in 20-yard boxes and a pretty good increase in the 40-yard boxes. So that means more revenue. And I still think that's due to the changes we made in pricing. Does anybody have any questions about any of that?
Are these billed by invoice, or is there something you put on them a month and it sends them a bill?
The roll-offs?
For the other things that we bill
Yeah,
separately.
so the roll-offs are all charged for unless they're kept on site. So like we have a few accounts, for instance, like Big R, that keeps them on site. They have them there, they're like a trash can, but kept on site permanently. And we just pick it up as often as they ask us to. But for the most part, anybody who wants a roll-off, we charge for those up front, and they don't get charged to accounts.
So it doesn't go through billing. I guess my question is, we can't find these numbers through billing? Or is there a charge code that they're...
to building accounts.
So some of them you can and some of them you can't. The ones that are within the city limits of Lahana and have an account generally put it on the account, but there are some that are not that do not have accounts with us in the billing system, and those are billed by our accounts receivable clerk. So you're not gonna find all of them, but the BR is the bin rental and the BP is the bin pickup.
Yeah,
So that's when it's
those you
picked up.
charge for through billing. Everything else is by invoice and they pay
Yes.
a cashier or where?
Yeah, they pay
Okay,
in.
at the utility office?
Yeah, in the accounts receivable office, and now, as of, last week, you can pay in the engineering office.
We now have our own.
All right.
Do we, how many 20-yard and 40-yard boxes do we have?
So we have a total of 40, 20s and 40s. I don't know what your breakdown is. It's not 20 to 20, but we have a total of 40.
Do we ever get close to maxing that out?
Yeah. So every single year I was using the capital that was given to the sanitation. I was always using those to buy boxes because in my mind, every year that we always hit a limit, I feel like we should have more. Now, obviously, they're not always going to be used every single month, but basically from now until October, there's a good chance that they can go out and will always be out. So I always, anytime that I hit a max limit, I always try to buy more. But this year, I used that money to buy trash cans and dumpsters. So I'm going to see how the budget works out, and towards the end of the year, if I'm under budget, I may pull some of that money and try to buy some more. I won't know till we get closer to it.
Other questions? The reason I ask, it'd be nice if we could have run a report that says how much income went up as well as counts, so, but that's a different issue. So.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just to go over the financials real quickly, everybody have the balance sheet. So you can see cash investments, accounts receivable, inventory, and fixed assets. I guess I've been looking at this for several months now and didn't realize that fixed assets and inventory were a part of assets. But then next to that, you can see your liability, and of course, the post-closure costs did decrease in the last month, which helps then our fund balance, or available fund balance. So technically, if you take your fund balance and you subtract your post-closure costs, your accrued benefit, your inventory and fixed assets, then you kind of have a good picture for what you actually have monetarily in your fund balance, which I derived as being about $1.3 million. I do want you to keep in mind that we are purchasing the 2 trucks. We should see them here at the end of July. We're trading in our 2 old trucks towards those. The amount that we're buying the trucks for is about $500,000, just under that. We trade the 2 trucks in, should get us down to about $340,000. That'll come out of the 1.3 million, leave us about 975,000 in the fund balance for cash investments. Again, below that, you can see our revenue month to date for the month of April, and then our year-to-date revenue. And then our expenses, we're still, right now, our revenue exceeds expenses, and last month it was exceeded it by $50,571. But to keep in mind, monthly, we're still under budget. I did send you guys a spreadsheet to kind of see what we're looking at as far as revenue versus the budget and the projected revenue versus the budget. Anybody have any questions about that?
So revenue, sales revenue is what we bill for rentals and pickups, and other revenue is,
What we bill on the side, the one you said, is there a tracking for it? That's what my accounts receivable bills to the
that's
customer.
other revenue.
That's direct.
Other AR goes,
Yes.
goes to that. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
There might be a little bit of scrap sale in that.
We do, from the transfer station, we pick up a lot of metal
Metal,
and
yeah.
stuff. And we just
It'll
take
help you.
that, those checks go right to our AR, goes right back into.
Yes, okay. Other questions? All right, thanks, Martin. Oh, I guess I should say, you did a good job on the spreadsheet. I think we'd like to discuss it next time, since we all aren't prepared, probably with paper copy and all that,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I figured if you guys wanted to
Yeah,
discuss it, you would.
I appreciate that.
So,
If you need to update it, then feel free.
There'll be a recommendation to increase the budget next month for the trash trucks that have been purchased. And then all of that will go to council the following week.
So that spreadsheet, I think, I agree with Gary, I think it's very good, it's very clear. That we need to get that distributed, so Melanie, if you put that package for next month.
And if there's anything else that any of you can think of, feel free to let either myself or Melanie know, so that we can help you in your decision on whether you need to increase rates by what.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
You bet.
Agenda. I guess there's a request to review the financials for water and sanitation, so if I misspoke earlier, Tom.
So much for keeping it short. Looking at number 2 first, which would be wastewater. I don't have my hard copies with me, I apologize. Expenses exceed revenues by almost 178,000. But if you look through the expenses, one of the metrics we use is, of course, about this time of year, we should be about 33% through our budget, somewhere between 32 to 33% per line item. The majority of our higher costs as we're going in expenses comes down to the benefits packages. So insurance, pension, places like that is where we're currently seeing the highest volume of expense going out. Sludge disposal, on this report it's currently showing we're at 30% with it. However, we just received one invoice that was late, should have been here for April and been on this report, so that's another I think it was about $32,000 that should have been included on here if Denali had been on time with their billing. And then we've already received yet one more. So we're averaging, after their continued increase in expenses to haul, we're well on our way to completely exceeding what we budgeted this year. What we budgeted this year should have covered what they charged us last year. It's just a matter of, you almost start to wonder if they're, how much can they squeeze, how much water out of that particular rock. So following along with that, we discussed before how we wish to try to handle our biosolids internally. We received bids for 3 separate screw presses which is what's come suggested to us from different engineers and other places that all handle theirs on. It can run continuously for less expense than like a centrifuge or a belt press, fewer moving parts. The motor on it, I think, is like a 20 or 25 horsepower motor. You get to the centrifuges, you're 50 to 65 horsepower, so of course a lot more electrical draw. From the company that we would prefer to get one from, it came in at about $383,000 for a brand new press, which is $200,000 less than the next competitor. And then the other two were about $20,000 or so difference between them. As far as a building goes, to be able to house it in, instead of erecting a new construction, we feel we could do some very minor rehab on what's now just a storage building, but a long time ago it was the lab and office building. If you look at the wastewater plant, it's the small, kind of short building that sits directly behind the tan sludge holding tank. So that would keep the press in the same area where sludge would be handled. We would just either need to run temporary hose that we could pick up in inclement weather, or eventually incur the expense to run the piping to operate the press underground. Either way, I think would be okay. So that's a project that's we're currently following up to see exactly what we can do. Again, the new press is $383,000. We're working to see if for some reason somehow we could get lucky and find the style that we would like, a used one someplace where a different facility is upgrading. And if they have one that would be in certified decent shape, of course it wouldn't come with a guarantee, then that's probably the one we would pursue. But until we get to that point, it's just mostly a lot of legwork and research until we can get there. But if you look at the price that Denali is charging us to continue to haul this, that would basically pay for this press in probably about a year and a half. Then you just come with the little added expense for what utilities would cost, and then we'd also have to begin to purchase polymer that gets mixed into the biosolid as it goes through. That adheses to water, it helps everything get squished out. It would help us increase our reclamation of water, which right now, since Denali's hauling liquid biosolid, we have a lot of water that just goes out the front gate with them. On the water side, unless there's any questions with wastewater.
I don't have a question, but a statement or a request. Could you compile some of that data and the cost versus the cost savings of the squeezer or press?
I think that's a squeezer, I think is the new official term I'm going to use for this whole project. We certainly can. Right now it's just working documents, but for like the RFQ where they put together the different prices, we could send that out.
Well, not so much the pricing information, but what our anticipated savings cost versus what we're doing now versus what we would be at with this press.
Absolutely. We'll get that together for you. Thank you. I also just found out, this is a side one as we're going towards water, is I was just informed that earlier today I emailed out the costs that we've incurred with main breaks, and I was told that my email didn't go out for some reason. So when I'm done here, I'll go back to my office, find out what I did wrong, and resend that information out. Again, it'll detail the main breaks from, I believe we took last July, up until end of March or end of April. So there's 15, I think, or so different instances that are broke out on that form. So technology inept person, it had to be user error, I'm sure. So I apologize for that. On the continuing on with water, I know I'm talking a lot.
Do you know what that number is approximately?
About 125,000
okay.
Total for all those repairs. The water loss, cost of the water that we had lost was around $8,000 to $10,000. Of course, you have your manpower worked in there. That's one of the greater parts. You might look at, when you see the document, the repair parts itself might come out to be like the lesser expense of the ordeal. But when you have to go through all of the time and effort to dig down where the problem's at just to put, the repair band dresser onto it, that affects exactly all the parts you needed. It just takes a lot to get there, and then it takes a lot to fill the hole back in, and then asphalt to cover it over. Asphalt is an expense that I didn't list, because currently our streets department tries to take care of all the holes we leave behind, if that's a practice that ever changes, then we'll begin including the cost of asphalt as well. Thanks, Martin. Appreciate you. Water side, it's also kind of the same. Revenue exceeded expenses, but you can, from last month, you will see that that is a larger reduction than before. As you also go through, you can see that the majority of our expense comes down to what benefits currently are running. The vast majority of what our costs are has been, what's that, sanitation, has been managed by our employees doing their best to keep repair costs down. So that does mean that there is some maintenance or replacements that are being deferred until later, but we all know that we're currently trying to manage the budget. So as long as we have pieces and parts and we're able to keep things together and operating, that's what the current practice is. And on this one, another expense you'll probably see in the next month is we just got a load of chemical in today. So that's probably about 45 grand, 45 to 50 grand. I didn't see the final total, but you'll see those as like one big chunk, and then that's enough chemical, dependent upon usage, that should get us through 6 to 9 months. And then we have to buy, of course, resupply our stock.
I just add, you said currently we're trying to manage the budget. We're always trying to manage the budget.
Absolutely. No questions?
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, to new business, discuss our water rate change. Had a lot of information coming our way. We had a pretty good work session, I think, a week ago. And it is proposed that we implement the rates that our consultant gave us in the study a couple of years ago almost, with the exception of changing from 2 tiers or blocks for consumption to 3. And we modeled that change just to see if we could tell what difference that would make. And the results seem to be okay with what we're looking for. I don't know how we should proceed, or do we want to discuss
I think you have to have a motion before you can discuss.
right? Well, I was thinking, is our motion going to be the sheet that was prepared? The summary sheet? I think that would suffice.
Well, if the summary sheet that you got is based on the changes that were put on this.
Yes.
And so there is a resolution with it, it's not numbered, but you could motion to accept this proposal. The only difference between this one and the one that we worked on is the $5,000 for the hydrant. Everything else was the same.
Okay.
And so that would be my suggestion. And if you were to put a date on that, I would suggest June 11th.
All billing in June, correct?
Yeah, because we just did billing today. And so June 11th would be 30 days to notify the public.
Okay. I guess my concern was that document you sent, which is a copy of the policy manual, if I'm saying that right. All is good, but I like to see the abbreviated version of where the changes are going to be made. And that's my own personal choice there. So we can move, go ahead.
Yeah, but when you're, and I see what you're saying, but when you're making a motion to change the utility board policy, it's best to
Yeah, I understand. I wasn't disagreeing with you. I was just
Oh,
saying my
oh,
reason,
okay.
my
All
reasoning
right.
for that as well. One thing in that manual, the resolution has the wrong year on it, I noticed in your
Oh, because I
packet.
stole it from, so that's a,
Right.
yeah, that can be fixed.
So we have a motion that someone makes, we can do further discussion here.
Motion that we continue to discuss the proposed water rates increases.
We should move to approve them and then we can discuss it, right?
So need a motion, a second, then discussion.
Yeah.
So
you
make
wanna-
a motion for the increase and then second it, and then you can discuss whether you want to do
But you can't make a motion to discuss it.
Okay, so
Which
so
is what you
rescind your motion,
Okay.
and then just restate it.
Rescind that motion and make a motion to discuss the.
No, you have to adopt, you have to adopt it
To adopt the
Yes.
proposed water rate increases.
with the change that she mentioned for the 5,000, whatever. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I seconded, now we can discuss. So a lot of numbers here. So I'll give a brief summary of what I think the changes are, the effect on our income. Would you like to do that? Okay.
Just if you guys change something, I want to be able to write it.
Okay, well, we've changed the fee, the base fee, from, let me get the right number here. We changed almost everything, but the things that people will see on a day-to-day basis are what I'm going to discuss here. Where is it?
Not this one. Here, customer charges here.
Yeah, I thought it was in this document, but it's not. Okay, oh, here it is, okay. So we'll start with the customer charge. So the customer charge is presently $10.50 for residential. We're proposing to change it to $12. That's for a 3/4 inch line. 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 6 inch, and 8 inches are all going up by approximately the same percentage. So most common are the 3/4 for residential and 1 inches. I suppose there's a few residentials. That's going from $18.59 to $21.24. That change to the fees, if I'm correct, will add, we'll change our income from $769 plus $1,000 to from $626,000 and change to $769,000 and change, increasing by $143,020 the revenue annually. We're proposing also to change the per gallon charge, per 1,000 gallon charge, from $2.85, is it?
Yes.
To $3.15. Yeah, we have two blocks presently. The first 30,000 are at $2.85. The second, or over 30,000 is $3.75. We're,
Typo on my part, apologies.
what is it?
It's currently 325.
Not 375.
Okay. 325. Okay. We're going to three tiers, which first starts for the first 30,000 at $3.15 per 1,000. The second tier is another $30,000 over that, which is $3.45. And at 60,000 gallons and over, they'll be charged at $4 per 1,000. We anticipate that change will increase our total revenue too many papers and not enough brains. a total of $143,020. Well, that's fees, sorry. I didn't print that total out on this sheet. I have it on a spreadsheet. Do you know that number? I'm not sure I have that calculated.
For residential, it's about $60,000
Okay,
based on,
about 60,000 for
that's just
resident.
an average, but it'll be like less in the winter and more in the summer.
Okay,
Did I see that right, Tom? This one right here? Yeah.
okay. Anyway, stumbling through that. Anybody else want to have a comment or discussion? We have all this in worksheets, which I'm not doing well.
It's a lot of
Presenting.
information.
Yeah,
Top of water meter, in that case.
okay. Yeah, the additional fees, like more or less one-time things. We have an issue with people, we sell people building things, and they rent a tap and a meter to go on a hydrant, and we've not gotten a big enough deposit to encourage them to bring it back, so they've taken off with them, so we've changed that deposit to a $5,000 charge plus $4 a day. We left the facility maintenance fee unchanged at this point in time. That's the $17 fee for residential 3/4 inch. Tap fees have gone up.
I think that's it there.
Yeah. All right, so, anyway. Mumbo jumbo. Anybody have comments or questions or thoughts or? We had a pretty good work session. I think we have documentation to be sure. Our consultant did a pretty thorough study, which is our source for making these changes.
Correct, and most of the numbers that are on here are what he had suggested. We've kind of seen the projections, we've talked about it, how his is really close to what he had thought. Couple things though that like are unforeseen when he's making his projections, of course, is the cost of living and how that's been exponential since this was really started about 2 years ago. So cost of items, have gone up. There's also to some effect, he includes about, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was in there, about $750,000, maybe a little bit more, for annual capital outlay. And that was based, again, 2 years ago when we were always working to reduce our budget to try to make it work. So a lot of potential projects had been taken out. As time goes and you continue to do inspections, you're always finding new things to add to your list that of course need to be fixed and repaired. We're currently undergoing the SCADA upgrade, which is a study that wasn't included, an expense that really wasn't included when he formulated this. Another one I kind of spoke to is the condition of our storage tanks. They generally, every 10 years, you need to go through and you inspect them, and then they need to have their coatings, at least on the outside, completely redone. But at the same time, you send either divers or remote submersibles, or you can also go the way to where you completely drain a tank and then people go inside to inspect them and you check out the interior. Those inspections are mandated by the CDPHE, very rigorous new regulation that we have to follow. So I say all that to let you know that, like on our 3 million gallon tank, and you can look at the exterior of it, the exterior needs to be repainted. That'll be an approximate $700,000 to $800,000 paint job. It's a whole lot more than what your car might cost, your house might cost, because the CDPHE is exceptionally specific on the types of paint you can use. And they've gone to a new one now that's mandated that has no VOCs in it when you spray. It takes a special gun. You have less than 5 minutes once you hook things up to start pumping the gun, or the lines get clogged. Paint has to be heated when it goes out. And of course, first you have to sandblast the entire outside. The current quote shows that that'll take about 110,000 pounds of material. So there's always something new. And again, that's just the outside. The inside will be that cost, but about 1.5 times that cost, because we're showing a lot of corrosion on the interior ceiling supports, and just the interior pumps and the rest, or standpipes and the rest will have to be replaced. We have to replace the manway ladder that goes up. The hatch has to be done. The vent no longer meets current specifications. So as regulations change, so does the outlook for expense. And these are all things that, of course, the engineering or the rate study really couldn't incorporate with what he was asking for. And that's just the 3 million gallon tank. Of course, we have, you know, a bunch of other tanks. I think we have a total of 5 in our system. The time is coming to where they're going to have to be inspected as well. The only one that's received a new exterior coating was the reserve tank, which is up by the 3 million gallon tank, and that was $130,000 to repaint that one. And that one, we were lucky because we got it done before the new paint requirements came into effect. Had we waited and not got that done, that job would have been double. And I know I can sit here and harp against, like you've heard me say so many times, you know, about the condition of our distribution pipes. Tanks are a little bit maybe new to the show, but that's where they're at. We had Ms. Yergert spoke to like flow tubes and the rest that are inside the plant. Just because we got the SCADA system up doesn't mean that there is a whole lot of other items in that plant that are now 20 plus years old and they need to be refreshed. They no longer make the models or the parts for us to be able to repair what's in place. So those are continued upgrades that are going to have to be made. The meters and the flow tubes like she spoke to, you look at the different actuators, we have 13 to 15 of each of those in just the water treatment plant itself. And those are running somewhere, depending on what kind it is, between $5,000 to $8,000 a piece. So that adds up real quick. And the hope is that you can replace a few now and a few later and then a few more before the entire thing goes kaput, like our SCADA system did. And you know, our distribution pipes, again, 53,000 plus feet of cast iron that's somewhere between 50 to 70 years old, 140 some thousand linear feet of concrete pipe that's just a shade younger. Some of it's a little bit older because that started to be used in the 1930s. The rest of it might be PVC, that it's pipe in there that's okay, and that we just recently put in within the last 25 to 30 years. So, you know, we have a very minor head start, but that's a lot of work on the stuff that's underground that nobody gets a chance to see. And then lastly, there's everybody's favorite topics if a person chooses to look down the road just a little bit, and that's the probable, well, there's no way to get around the expense. It's just which route we're going to take. And that's to meet future and some current brand new regulations. I spoke earlier about the PFAS rules. There's manganese rule going to be coming down really soon as well. Our selenium issue has to be taken care of. That's been on the table for quite some time. But that discussion is, will we choose to go with the conduit, or will we choose to go with some additional type of treatment? And we had a brief presentation from Mr. Weber on that a little while ago. And he is always willing and able to come at any time to do a greater presentation on that information he had then, or especially as we continue to go through that the technical assistance grant, that's going to hopefully fill in some of the areas that were in there as well. So I've said all of that just to basically say that the current rate at which we're looking to expand or increase rates is something that we're hoping just gets us on par so that we're no longer losing any money. But as we look here in the very near future, we're going to have to be revisiting rates early and often, and there will be some increases that, generally speaking, they're going to be very uncomfortable. But they're all driven by necessity from aging infrastructure or necessity from increased regulation. And there's no way for us to get around regulation. For aged infrastructure, you can get around that by just waiting until it blows up in front of your house, and then the water department shows up to fix it if we're able to. There's several places where we show up where our main has ruptured, and you go to put a repair dresser on it, and as you're tightening it down, you know, not even talking about arms as good as yours, Mr. Berg, you can look at my little spaghetti arms, and the amount of torque I can put on there will crush the pipe. So then now you're having to go back and completely remove sections of pipe to be able to change the repair that way instead of just a little dresser. So you can take this as a suggestion that either at this point, and I know we're looking to try to make a resolution here and move on for the night, is it either this time or in the future, perhaps a slightly larger increase in what the customer fee is. We know we haven't matched the $17 fee, we haven't changed that in a while, but we know the type of revenue that a fixed fee is able to bring in. And then we can also look a little bit at perhaps next year, as we're increasing an additional tier this year, perhaps next year we would like to revisit the idea of introducing additional tiers. Again, I've always thought a 5-tier system fits a lot of systems best. It just depends on the margins you like to put in there in between each tier. Is it your first 20 and then another 20, another 20? Is it a lot less? It's what a person feels best fits their system. And every community you go to is going to have a different idea on how that best fits their community and system. And that's a lot to be said before a very heavy topic where we're at now, and I really don't intend to be, a block in the way of your discussion or what you may be prepared to approve this evening. But there will be a lot more work to be done. We're going to continue, Ms. Weicker and I are going to continue our rate studies so that hopefully towards the end of the year, when it will be about time to perhaps review for 2025 how the rate structure might look, we can have those discussions a little bit more early and often and not be, kind of like at the end of the first quarter of the year, starting the second quarter, when we really start to send out water to the system. I know you wanted me to talk less, Mr. Cranston, but here I am.
I'm going to talk now. I just want to remind everybody that things weren't done in the past. That's in the past. We've got to do this to help get us afloat again, no pun intended on the water thing, but we've got to be able to help protect not only our drinking water, and I'm going to speak as the fire chief, and I spoke with Mike the other day of we've got fire hydrants that we have to take care of as well, which comes off the same mains, and we don't want to get in situations where we're putting life safety in jeopardy as well. But we have to do these steps to get us back to the point where we can get onto a normal rotation of making sure that we stay ahead of the costs so we don't finish in the negative at the end of each year.
There was a water rate increase in 2015 and then last year. With the exception, after 2015, the water department did not lose money in 16 and has lost money every year since. So these proposed rate increases from JK Engineering are, as Tom said, just kind of keeping us afloat. It's not putting much money in the bank for our needed infrastructure improvements, conduit alternatives. I reviewed the JK study somewhat and compared that to our budget, and I think his study was very, very accurate. he had projected, we're within $6,000 or $7,000 of his anticipated loss this year, or in 2023, his projection versus the actual loss in 23 was only within $6,000. I think that's pretty accurate. He had a forecast of anticipated infrastructure or capital improvements of $790,000, which was a little light last year. Throw in a couple breaks and we're above that. And again, all these numbers are just keeping us even keeled, trying to keep from being in the negative. So this, even our proposed rate increases are definitely not it's not an end. It buys us a little time. I think we need to be back here very quickly and start looking at additional rate increases. Our rates, as Tom and Megan had put together a list of approximately 20 other municipalities, and we're slightly over 50% of their water rates, which and we've ignored raising rates for quite some time, and I think it's coming to haunt us.
Yes. Do we have any fire hydrants that will knowingly fill right now if you hooked up to fight a fire?
Yeah, we probably have 3 or 4 that are out of service, but it's not the hydrants themselves. The hydrants, I think, are pretty good. It's the mains and everything else that we start pulling too much water at one time. I mean, these aging mains are what is going to give us the issue. I do give the water department credit on the fire hydrants themselves, but when we start talking 50, 70-year-old pipes, it's just you kind of hold your breath at times. But we try to keep that in mind. We stay in communication really well with the water department if we are flowing a lot of water, so they can make sure that they're monitoring all their systems as well.
I don't mind doing these increases now, but I'd rather us look at it a lot more often and continue working on it, not just wait until it's around this time. I feel too often we play defense all the time. We're always playing defense, and we're never playing offense. And that's a problem. So I think yes, let's do this, and then let's immediately go to see what we need for the next one coming up. And that's my opinion.
Rate studies, or at least seeing where we're at, I think it would be fantastic if we're able to make it an annual event. And I'm sure Melanie would get pizza for us if we were to do so. And that doesn't necessarily mean rates have to be increased every year, especially once we get stabilized and start bringing in some cash reserves to be able to do these very large projects in front of us. But if we at least know that towards the end of every year before the next one begins, we review where we're at financially, it'd behoove not only water department, but I'm sure every enterprise fund.
Other comments? And that is the goal. Start putting some money in the bank so we can make major improvements. It's going to happen. And all these new reports we're getting to emphasize our financial condition are part of our emphasis on understanding where we are on a monthly basis. And thank the staff for helping us get that out. Any other comments or concerns? Are you ready to vote on the question? All those in favor of approving the rates as published in the document Elisa provided with the change to the $5,000 fee, was that for the meter and taps?
Hydrant meter.
Say again?
Hydrant meter.
Hydrant meter, yeah, I knew that. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Can I add something for a second?
Go ahead.
I appreciate all the effort the board does, and I know in the past, there's been questions about what benefits you all, and this last month, we've given you a ton of information, and I'm sure some of it you did not find relevant, and some of it you did, and it would be nice if you could inform us what you did find relevant, what you didn't find relevant, so that we can continue giving you the information you need and not giving you things that you just, we thought that report would give you what you wanted, but it doesn't. So if, when you look over everything and you say, you know what, this is the report we relied on, it'd be really great to let us know so that we can continue informing you in the manner that you need to make these tough decisions that you guys have been making.
Great suggestion. We will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Interim City Manager.
I don't have a lot to report. The only thing I do want to just give kudos out to all of the different departments on the different things they've been doing. The electric guys, the electric crew's been out doing. We also talked about, and I'll bring this up next week for City Council, of how we can maybe better improve to our customers when outages happen on the electric side into the community. There was 1,700 out without power the other night. So we talked about that amongst supervisors, so we've got a plan that we're going to try to improve there. Water department guys, wastewater guys out doing their thing. My hat's off to them. They have a tough job at almost every day. So that's about where we're at right there.
Okay, thank you. Governing body comments?
Just to reply to Elisa and the board, it's tough for me when I get, 7 different packets and then another one when we come here tonight, and then the information is wrong, and then it's saying, well, don't look at this one, look at this one. I didn't understand what you meant. I didn't understand what you guys needed. That's tough for me, because if I'm, working all day, and I think we have a couple retired people here, it's hard to study these and do these and then find out that everything I was looking at was wrong, and now I have to look at this other one and then get handed another piece of information right before I sit down and look at that. That's tough for me, so I don't know what we need to do to get that going, but especially before we do an increase like that, to find out that not all our information is accurate is really, really tough.
I would agree. I think effort needs to be put in, and not so much in trying to get the information out, but making sure it's accurate. It is very, I concur with everything Joe said. It's very difficult to find the time to sit and review it and then find out that what we're looking at is not right.
That's one of the reasons I asked, so we can focus on that one report to make sure that it is accurate, as opposed to giving you 14 reports that we just, like you, don't have all the time when we're asked, when can I get that? Can I get that tomorrow? And so I agree with you. I would rather focus on making a report accurate for you than giving you 40 reports that you don't even want. So, and I do appreciate the time that you do spend looking at all of those. And I do apologize if our reports are not 100% accurate, because I know that is a waste of your time.
Other comments? I'll add my want to the list. It would be nice if you put a date on things, just so if we get a revised version, we know which one is the later one. That's trivial, but would be helpful. Hopefully you don't get multiple copies of the same thing.
I don't think that's trivial at all, Gary.
I prefer getting things that are the original PDF in the mail rather than a copy, because you can't search and scanned image. I like to do things on my computer. You scan for a phrase or a number, so if you can do that instead of printing it and then scanning it and send it to everybody, that's helpful to me. It's just personal preference there. And when we put markers with highlights on things in reports and copy them, you can't read them. That's not helpful either. You can't read those numbers on the black and white copy very well, so that's, maybe make it to the side if the color version or whatever it is meaning to somebody. But anyway, enough said on that. Thank you for
We'll take care
trying to
of all
help
of those
out.
things, and I do agree with the dating of things, because that is important, more than you think.
All right, any other comments?
Are you going to be at the city council meeting on Monday to inform the
Citizen
citizens?
Mike?
Or the vice chair
Sure.
to do it.
On vice chair.
What if yeah, with my dog ate my homework, could you come?
Sure.
I'll be there, sure. All right, with that then, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.